The material editor is a single window that's broken down into three basic areas. We have 24 little windows here, which make up the sample windows. Then we have, along the bottom and along the side of these sample windows, the material editor controls. And then below, we have the parameters rollouts. The material samples can be selected by clicking on them. The currently active selection has a white box around it. I have an object selected in my scene, and if I apply a surface to an object, it has 4 little triangles in that window. So if I move away, I can see there are 4 white triangles. This says that this material is mapped to a specific object. If I change this surface by changing the color or any of the other parameters in the rollouts, it'll automatically be applied to the object that I've assigned to it. If I want to edit this surface without changing the other objects that are assigned to it, I can simply click and drag it to another one of the boxes and edit it there. And then if I want to apply that to objects, I can click here on the Assign Material to Selection. Let's quickly go through the Material Editor controls. The Get Material button enables you to load a material or create a new material. Choosing this button will display the Material Editor map browser, which we'll see in a few moments. The Put Material to Scene button enables you to update the definition of a material in the scene with the current material in the Material Editor. This will also let you save a material definition to the scene. The Assign Material to Selection button enables you to assign the currently selected material to all selected objects in a scene. The objects that you have must be selected before you choose this button. You can select objects while the Material Editor is open, simply by clicking in any one of the views. The Reset Map to Default Settings button lets you reset the current sample window, in this case all these 24 samples, back to the default material settings. The Make Material Copy button lets you make a copy of a material that's hot or being used in a scene. For example, if I click here, I can make a copy of this without moving it to another material cell. And I can edit that. The Put to Library button lets you save the current material to a material library on your hard disk. The Material Effects Channel button lets you assign one of 15 effects channels for use in video post-production. Because this is a basics disk, we won't be getting into this function. The Show Map in Viewport button lets you show the current bitmap used in the current material in the current shaded viewport. This is a good way to work with material mapping and being able to see it dynamically. The Show End Result button does just that. It lets you see the end result of complex surfaces on objects in a given viewport. The next button, the Go to Parent button, lets you move to the parent surface. When you create materials in 3D Studio Max, sometimes it has different levels of surfacing. So you can have layers and layers of surfaces in one particular material. This lets you go back to the parent material. If you're working on a parent material, you can go to the sibling of that material by clicking on this button, the Go to Sibling button. The Materials Map Navigator brings up a hierarchical list of the currently selected surface. So if you have a surface that's a bunch of layers deep, you can see in this hierarchy how that surface is created. The Select by Material button lets you select objects in a scene based on the material used to map them. In other words, you can select an object based on the kind of surface it has applied to it. The Options button lets you select the options for the material editor. For example, how many samples to show, and so forth. Right now I have it set to 6 by 4, so I can see 24 samples at once. And you can change all of these samples to customize your material editor. This next button lets you create a preview, play a preview, or rename a preview. Previews can be surfaces that have animations on them, so you can actually have a material. You can apply a QuickTime movie or an AVI file to an object as a surface. The Video Color Check button lets you check your colors for your materials and compares them to either PAL or NTSC video space. The Sample UV Tiling button lets you view a material at various tiling ratios on the sample object. So if you have a picture that repeats over a surface, you can check it out at different scales to see how it will look. The Background button lets you change the background for your sample window. So if you have a transparent object, you can see through it and see the pattern in the background. This button lets you turn on and off backlighting in your little sample window. The Sample Type button lets you change the object sample in your sample window. You can have a sphere, a cylinder, or a cube. The Eyedropper lets you pick a material from an object in your scene. And the Material pull-down lets you select from the hierarchy of material levels. The Type button lets you select what type of surface you're going to use. You can select from blend, double-sided, matte shadow, multi-sub-object, ray trace, standard, top to bottom. And we'll get into those in a different section. And finally, we have the parameter rollouts. We have the basic parameters, extended parameters, maps, and dynamic properties.